It's a nice day. It's quite humid during the night. Couldn't get cool really because of it. Couldn't get a breeze through the house. Had all the windows open. The other night I had all the windows open and there was a breeze. But what's interesting about it was I woke up in the middle of the night to the bedroom door slamming, opening and shutting. It's quite an interesting experience, and I think during the daytime it would have been but for a split second in the middle of the night with the door slamming, there's no one there, it does turn one's mind to the supernatural, things that go bump in the night, and ghosts and ghoulies and all that sort of stuff. So it was an interesting that for about a few seconds there was the thought that there was something very strange going on. But I got up, shut a window, and it stopped, which was great. But it got me thinking about ghosts. I like the idea of ghosts. It's a nice idea. I like the premise. I like the whole, it's somebody from the past who's obviously passed on, and whatever it is, it could be like electrical energy, fingerprints left behind, or they're somewhere else trying to communicate, or they're just trying to scare the bejesus out of us. I don't know, but I like the fact that I like the whole thing that there's something there. Science can't explain if it is, and I've never seen a ghost. And I think that's probably the case with most people. And one of the problems I have with ghosts is you never see them during the daytime. Why don't we see them during the daytime? Is it because we're more susceptible, more sensitive at night because we're tired? Is it because it's dark and you can see these things better? Or is it just because it's the brain doing strange things that we really don't understand, making us think we can see these things? Why don't we see ghosts of animals? Surely we should see a ghost cow or a ghost sheep. We seem to see an awful lot of human-like figures, don't we? And usually ones from many years ago. Usually they're from hundreds of years ago. Sometimes they're headless, which is interesting. They float. Sometimes they make a noise. I suppose then there's paranormal activity like poltergeists, where things literally get thrown around by these entities, whatever they are. That's sort of interesting. But science wouldn't have an answer, and I think the science answer is they don't exist, these things, that they all have very human, very rational explanations. I did see a very interesting experiment many years ago where people were put in a darkened room, not completely dark, and sat down on a reclining position on a chair. So they were, in a state that you could argue you'd have similar to if you was in bed at night or going to sleep or getting ready to go to sleep maybe. And they would they put these helmets on them that basically had it wasn't so much electrical, it was more magnetic. They could alter the magnetic fields around the brain and see what happened. And it was very interesting in some of the subjects, and with certain magnetic fields in certain parts of the brain, they started to experience some really supernatural sort of sensations. I think one of the common ones is that there's somebody watching you, there's someone in the room, there's a presence, and they are looking at you, or they're behind you. That was quite a common one, I think, on some of the subjects, that there was a feeling that there was, somebody there. As far as I'm aware, there was no sort of visual, whatever you want to call them, hallucinations or things of that nature. But a lot of the sensations around the paranormal were there, and they had a feeling of foreboding, or they had all sorts of sensations that are very much maybe difficult to quantify, and seem to be very human, and seem to be signatures of these sort of paranormal, supernatural events. And it did get me thinking that on the planet that we live in, there's all sorts of magnetic fields, static electricity. We have Wi-Fi now, and GSM signals, which are extremely powerful. The DECT phones, I know they do have low power modes now as well. And I wonder if that's not making it worse. That's not making people have more of these things. It might be actually making people have less. Maybe it's clouding out more of the natural magnetism or magnetic fields that might stimulate the whole ghost thing, the paranormal thing. Because it certainly seems to me like there's less and less reports of that now. You don't really hear about it anymore. There might be alien abductions, and I think a lot of sensations around that. The feeling of flying, of people around you, that can all, those are the sorts of sensations you'd get, I think, with this, like the magnetic fields. And I wonder now if we're flooding the airwaves with these electromagnetic radiation at different frequencies. And I wonder if it's blocking some of maybe the Earth's natural emanations, so shall we say, making us less sensitive, and maybe we're a bit more, savvy. We now have the internet. We have Google, which I do avoid using. I think I've mentioned that before. I like Google because it is handy at times. Often I forget how to spell quite a complicated word, and it can just give you a little bit of confidence. I've thought of a word I don't use very often, and I just want to know it's the right definition. I find it's very handy for that. I'm not always happy having to depend or rely on it, because I think that's everyone can do that, can't they? Everyone can give it a couple of clicks and find out how old Sean Connery is, how old Kirk Douglas is. Nice to hear they're both still alive, of course. So maybe we are more savvy. Maybe technology is changing the way, in subtle ways, we perceive things, and we feel things. And maybe a while from now, the whole thing about ghosts and those supernatural sensations that people experience might disappear altogether.